service.
Our present courthouse was built in the mid-1960s. Prior to that time, the courthouse was located on the town square in the middle of Hodgenville. That courthouse was torn down in the mid-1960s after this building was built. The old courthouse was built in the mid-1800s, and it was burned during the Civil War, and was also burned again in the mid-1950s, something like that. After it was demolished, of course, it was located down on the square across from the Lincoln statue. And so this has served as our courthouse from that time until now.
What kind of information is available as far as tourism?
We're very fortunate to have the national park that I mentioned earlier in our county. We have about 300,000 or so people each year who visit Lincoln's birthplace. And of course, we'd like to see a lot more people than that come and visit us. The park is a very beautiful place. We also have a lot of other attractions here. When the Lincolns moved from the Sinking Spring Farm, they only moved about 8 miles away to Knob Creek, which is just east of here and really in a beautiful setting. It was there that Lincoln first saw the slaves being driven along the toll road and may have made the impression upon him that helped to make him the man that he was. It's also the place where he has written that caused his earliest memories. So we're real proud of the fact that Lincoln was born here. He's probably one of the most famous men in the entire world. We are trying to make the most of what we have and also to bring about some other attractions for our county. We have some buildings that are on the historical register, and as the judge just mentioned, the courthouse, this particular courthouse houses probably the only Lincoln art collection of its type, and we're very pleased with that. It hangs here in the lobby. Each year we add a new piece of Lincoln art to that, so you may want to take a look at that.
Okay, thank you. What is the major industry in LaRue County?
The major industry we have here is Nationwide Uniform Corporation, located just outside of Hodgenville, and it employs approximately 400 people.
Population is 12,000. The city of Hodgenville is about 2,500. Then we have 3 smaller communities within the county. Magnolia and Buffalo are each about 500 people. And then down in the southern end of the county, Line Station has about 400 people.
Lebanon is the county seat of Marion County. Marion County population, 17,825. Area square miles, 347. Rank, 48th. Marion County is located in the 2nd Congressional District.
We're in Lebanon, Kentucky. Behind us, across the street, we have the Marion County Courthouse. To my right, we have the county court clerk, and I'm going to let him introduce himself.
I'm Philip Jarbo. I've been county clerk for, this is my 14th year.
Okay. What can you tell us about the county, how the county was formed?
Well, Marion County, when Kentucky was originally formed, it was 3 counties. At one time, we were part of Jefferson County. The 3 counties were formed in 1780. And up till 1834, we were part of Washington County. In 1834, Marion County fell away from Washington County was formed. So in 1863, all the records in the courthouse were burned. So consequently, from 1834 to 1863, there's no records of anything on Marion County. And the original courthouse was torn down, and the courthouse that you see across the street was dedicated in 1935.
Great. Okay. Could you tell me what the population is in your county?
The population of Marion County is just something over 18,000 people. And about 5,600 is the population of the city limits of Lebanon.
I'm Frank Abel, a barber.
What is the name of your shop?
Frank's Barber Shop.
Okay. Where's it located?
West Main Street.
I'm Leroy Sen. I'm the Executive Director of the Chamber of Commerce and the Economic Development Office.
Okay. What can you tell us about the major industries in your county?
Well, there's several things I guess we'd like for the public to know. Number one, we have the Jane and Linda Sportswear plant here. It's owned by a Palm Beach company. The Evan Picone skirt for ladies is made here. It's a very famous skirt, sold all over the world, and primarily by Saks Fifth Avenue and some other stores, expensive skirt. Then we have Maker's Mark Distillery here, and I think most people are familiar with Maker's Mark. In addition to that, we have an industry here who has already signed a contract to supply the new Toyota plant. We have a new company that built their plant last year during 1986 that will employ about 100 people. They're in production now, running 3 shifts and have about 40 people on the payroll. So we're doing very well here. The economy of Lebanon has picked up considerably. Most of the merchants down here are just tickled to death with what's going on.
Okay. What about tourism in your county?
Well, tourism we really haven't gotten into big yet because we spent most of our time and effort in trying to help the industries that are here, and we've been successful in that. And I might add, by the way, that we have a whiskey barrel manufacturing plant here that's exporting a large number of barrels to the Far East and to Europe now. So tourism hasn't really been a real high priority on our list. It will be as things continue to develop, and as the Highway Department builds US 68, as was promised by Governor Collins, then we will be able to get into tourism more. Right now, our greatest need to help us with tourism is the highway system.
Marion County was established by an act of the legislature approved January the 25th, 1834. It was cut out of the southern part of Washington County and was named in honor of General Francis Marion of Revolutionary War fame. Lebanon, the county seat, was incorporated in 1815 and first commenced by Ben Spalding. He named it for the surrounding growth of the cedars of Lebanon. The first court was held on the first Monday in March of that year in the east room of what was then called the Jennings House. The old courthouse withstood the ravages of time and served the community for 100 years. Brandenburg, the county seat of Meade County. Meade County's population is 23,172. Area square miles, 307. Rank, 61. Meade County is located in the 2nd Congressional District.
This is Sue Carter Harrington. To my right, Miss Sue Carter Harrington.
This is Mr. Monk Ross, our county judge. Meade County was formed by parts of Breckinridge County and Hardin County.
Harrington, how did Brandenburg get its name as Brandenburg?
The first settlers in Brandenburg were named Brandenburg, and there's graveyards around that still, have Brandenburg people buried in them.
Well, right here in Brandenburg, aren't there some Brandenburgs? Well, I know there are some Brandenburgs buried over on the hill by the historical house, Jimmy Watts's. Is that true?
Yes, and also by the Methodist Church. There's a cemetery where there are Brandenburgs buried. Well, John Hunt Morgan came through Brandenburg, and he was supposed to have visited in the Buckner home, which is now the J.R. Watts residence. And while he was here and they were going across the river, they sunk the Alice Dean, which I'm assuming was a ferry boat at the time. The first courthouse was on the site of Mrs. Jean Markham's home now. Of course, the courthouse is not there, but the clerk's office is part of her house.
You want to elaborate a little bit on the second courthouse?
Well, of course, all I remember about it, that my grandfather was county judge there for 2 terms from 1890. And, of course, the courthouse was destroyed by the tornado in 1974.
The courthouse right behind us was built in 1975 and 76, replacing the courthouse downtown that was blown away by the tornado.
Well, about, I'd say, 4 o'clock, they told us that there was a storm and we should all go to the basement. And we had to go outside to go downstairs. And I didn't really think much about it because tornadoes were something they had someplace else. But as I looked over my shoulder, a farmhouse, a dairy farm behind me, the house just went up splinters. And then I began to think that maybe it was for real. And it blew the top floor off of the RECC building. And none of us were hurt in there except me, and a piece of wood hit me in the head, which was only a scratch considering what everybody else got. There was Miss Ona Craycroft that worked there. Her mother was killed in the tornado, and Jane O'Brien lost both parents down in the area that Judge Ross was talking about that was all blown away.
Would you like to tell us about the Doe Run Hotel and some of the churches in the area, the history on them?
Well, I can tell you about the Brandenburg United Methodist Church. It was built in 1855, and during the Civil War, they housed some troops. And then they, after the war was over, they sent a bill. They did quite a bit of damage, so they sent a bill to Congress for $125. And we have long since gotten an organ in our church that came from Westfield, Massachusetts, I believe, and it was built in the 1880s.
Tell us about the Doe Run Hotel and how it was formed, and because you live so close to it.
Well, the Doe Run Hotel was an old mill, and I believe it was a mill until the 1900s. And then in the early 1900s, they made a summer resort out of it because they had mineral waters there, such as sulfur water, and they called it Sulphur Wells. Then in about 1927 or so, they changed the name to Doe Run Inn, which is now as a hotel and a restaurant.
Tell us about the St. Teresa's Church, one of the oldest churches in the county that's still being used.
Yes, St. Teresa's Church was built prior to 1828 and is the oldest church in the area. Anyway, it's also on the National Registry, and the church building was built in 1856.
One of the largest parks in the state. It's called Otter Creek Park. It's owned and operated by the city of Louisville, and some 25 to 30, sometime as many as 50,000 children a year come to camp at Otter Creek Park. They've just built a new restaurant overlooking the Ohio River, and they have 4,000 acres that they acquired in the early 40s, and it has really turned out to be a big asset to Meade County.
I'd love that. I think that would be fun. Where all these kitty cats come from?
I don't know. I hope they're feeding them.
I took a cruise on the Ohio River.
You mean on the Mississippi?
Yeah, on the Mississippi. Well, we go on the Ohio River sometime. Because I got on them in Chicago.
Oh, you did? And I happen to be a cat person, so I'm trying not to feel anything if I do it.
My grandfather was county judge, and in the convention, the Constitutional Convention of 1890 and 91, he was one of the signers of the present Constitution. And included in this album up here is the writer of the Constitution, who was W.R. Ramsey, and Bennett H. Young's picture, who was the composer of the Constitution. Right below that is the pen that he signed the Constitution with on September the 28th, 1891. Then below that is autographs of the Kentucky Constitutional Convention of 1890-91, and that includes the governor, Simon Bolivar Buckner, and also the pages of the convention. And right above that is a petition. They wanted to change the county seat from Brandenburg to Little York, which was the first settlement in Meade County. And this petition was one that they got to keep from changing it, and of course they didn't. Here are 3 railroad passes that my grandfather used during the convention to ride on the 3 railroads. And this is the Constitution. The one that was written by hand was lost. They don't have it, but this copy is one of the first printed copies. And also the rules of the Constitutional Convention is the next book. settlers of this area that would like to have land that is situated in the state of Kentucky and the county of Breckenridge and Hardin County, which made up Meade County. And there was 75,654 acres for sale.